Greetings, citizens, and thanks for tuning in to Nindie Nation episode 81. I'm Jeff, and if you're new here, welcome to your one-stop weekly shop for everything independently developed for the Nintendo Switch. This week, we're taking a quick look at every indie game releasing for the Switch from September 5th through the 11th, and after that, we'll find the best Nindie deals available to help you find just the thing to keep your Joy-Cons synced. Nindie Nation goes live on podcast feeds and YouTube each and every Tuesday, and we're brought to you by our friends at the Nintendo Village, your home for everything Nintendo, so go check them out at thenintendovillage.com. Don't forget to chat with us in the comments or on Twitter at Nindie Nation, and every Thursday night around 10 p.m. Eastern, you can catch the Nindies at Night live stream right on the Nindie Nation YouTube channel. We're already building up a nice catalog of past streams to check out, and there's a really fun new Let's Play coming later this week. So while you're here, don't forget to check out what else we have in store for you on the Nindie Nation YouTube channel. As you know, every week we see a few games drop without any warning whatsoever, and this week is no different. Did anything shadow drop that's worth your time? Well, there's only one way to find out. So with that said, let's kick off episode 81 by taking a look at the 8 neglected Nindies released since episode 80. And the first neglected Nindie of the week is Ballz Out. Look, when I was 12, I rented that fighting game called Ballz from the people who made the Clay Fighter games because, you know, balls. Now though, I don't know, man. It's a board table-based air hockey kind of game where you knock each other's balls off of a board. It's $2.50, it's developed by 4MB Interactive, and if you want a bunch of bad balls-related jokes, you can go check out the description for yourself. UBERMOSH Santicide is the third release in this limited scope arcade action series by Qbyte, but I think this entry is actually the first one that was created. There's a bunch of these, Swarm Riders, UBERMOSH Black, and each one is a really cheap, super limited arcade game that I've actually really enjoyed, even if I've only spent maybe an hour or so with each. In Santicide, you play a top-down twin-stick action title that combines melee and shooting, and you've got 90 seconds to see how many kills and points you can rack up. I think this one might actually have multiple classes and some upgrades, which would be a bit more than what I'm used to seeing with this series. It's 99 cents, it looks fun, but just know what you see here is what you get. And speaking of what you see is what you get, VicHulb has released a by-the-books anime shmup with Sky Jaguar 2 for $3.99, and it doesn't look half bad. I like the visuals, and it seems to teeter on the edge of being a bullet hell, but maybe without the insane difficulty that usually accompanies those titles. Alright, sit down, grab a drink, and check out this description for a new side-scrolling action-adventure by Kobador Yazalem.
How can a day go so mad? This is the question that runs on our hero Walter's mind, who is a jobless ex-veteran and suffers from PTSD. On the top all, Cthulhu is rising again from his eternal sleep from the deepest shadows of Earth to bring the apocalypse.
Didn't see that one coming. It looks kinda janky, but it does have that HP Lovecraftian style that I know a good portion of Nindie Nation citizens appreciate. Says it includes captivated musics and sounds, whatever that means. It's usually $12 and it launched for $6, but make sure you really like this world before diving in. BREAKDOT is a $4 breakout clone by Kuro that includes online play and a level creator. It looks kind of fun. Office Lovers is the nightmare of every HR representative, as it is the latest anime dating simulator by D3 Publishing, which puts you in the shoes of a woman working at a cosmetics company who must woo her male coworkers, develop a relationship, and keep it secret. It'll run you $15, it has a demo you can try out, but gang, please, we don't need anything else out there inspiring secretive office romances that are just bound to blow up at some point down the road. Please?
Super Dragonfly Chronicles
is a challenging 2D action-adventure by Marco Ayala Games that throws in the occasional shmup stage. It's $6.99 and is kinda interesting. I don't know though. There's something really weird about the art style. Like, some of it is detailed and surprisingly polished, but then the main character just kinda looks like clip art. I'm not saying it's bad, it's just really off-putting. I am kinda curious about this one though, because I like the way it blends two different genres. I don't know, maybe I'll check it out. And the last neglected Nindie of the week is Atom RPG, which is a top-down RPG based very heavily on the original Fallout games. It takes place in an alternate 1986 Soviet Union and combines combat, survival, and storytelling in one package, and is available now for $15.99 by Attent Games and Atom Team. Not a bad list of neglected Nindies this week, there's a little bit of everything. I could see myself checking out UBERMOSH as I've had fun with games in that series so far, and Sky Jaguar 2 does look like a fun shmup. What about you? Let me know in the YouTube comments or on Twitter at Nindie Nation. Looking ahead to the next week though, there are a bunch of new Nindies coming out, 23 in fact, and that includes a couple that I know a lot of us are really excited to check out. So let's waste no more time, citizens. Here are the 25 new release Nindies hitting the eShop from September 5th through the 11th. Circuit Dude is a cute little top-down puzzler by Jonathan Holmes and Sickhead Games for $4.99 that features 120 levels and the tease that if you want to figure out what Circuit Dude is building, you gotta clear the first 100 levels. Avicii Invector is a rhythm game that I think counts as an indie by Hello There Games, as Wired Productions have published other indies including Close to the Sun and Deliver Us the Moon. There's a demo you can download, and from what I've played of it, it feels a lot like Amplitude, which is probably my favorite rhythm game. If you try the demo or you just happen to love rhythm games, you can check out the whole package on September 8th for $19.99. The original Party Hard has a hilarious premise with gameplay similar to Hotline Miami, where you have to plan out how to take out a whole room of enemies without being spotted or hit. But the premise here is that you're taking out neighbors who are partying too hard. Pun definitely intended. And you're just a dude trying to sleep. Party Hard 2 by Pinochle Games and Tiny Build furthers that premise with more levels, a new soundtrack, local co-op, and a nice graphical facelift, and launches for $19.99. If you want to check out the original first, it's actually on sale right now for only $9, and while it isn't quite as good as Hotline Miami, it does a great job of taking that gameplay style and tweaking it just a bit while retaining what makes this genre otherwise so much fun. Okunoka Madness is a hardcore speedrunning platformer with an art style reminiscent of the Rayman Legends and Origins games by Caracal Games and Ignition Publishing, and should be right up the alley of anyone who loves games like Super Meat Boy, and so far it's getting great reviews. Okunoka Madness also launches on September 8th for $14.99. RPG Maker MV, or MV, launches this week, and I've already seen a flood of super cool creations from their community. I suggest following the team at NIS America on Twitter if you want to see what's possible in this latest entry of this long-running series that dates all the way back to the original PlayStation. I was curious about what the MV stood for, so I looked up what MV was in Roman numerals, and it's 1005, so I don't think that's it. Maybe it stands for Make Video Games, or Majestic Vindication. I don't know. Either way, if you've ever been interested in making your own games, and you have the time required to build out your own 16 or 32-bit JRPG game, RPG Maker MV seems to give you all the tools you need and will set you back $50. If anybody watching or listening happens to get the game and you make something, send over some video or screenshots to @Nindie Nation on Twitter. I'd love to see what some of you come up with. Meganoid is the newest entry in this 8-bit action exploration platforming series by Orange Pixel, and it's bigger than ever with procedurally generated levels, roguelike mechanics, and RPG elements. Meganoid is absolutely one of the harder entries in this genre, but if you're up for the challenge, the overall layout is pretty standard fare for a Nindie trifecta, and you can pick it up for just $8.99. This week, the Big Thursday drop is on September 10th, and it is definitely worthy of the moniker this week, as it includes 13 new releases with at least a couple that are worth your digital dollars. And the laundry list of Nindies kicks off this week with HotShot Racing by Curve Digital, which launches on sale 20% off for just $15.99. Similar to the beloved Horizon Chase Turbo, HotShot Racing uses a low polygon art style that will take you back to the glory days of 90s arcade racers. Whereas Horizon Chase focused more on the outrun style of racers, HotShot Racing takes elements of Daytona USA, Ridge Racer, and even a colorful cast of characters that seem picked right out of F-Zero to deliver a silky smooth, highly polished arcade racing game that will have you drifting, drafting, and boosting your way through 16 racing circuits with up to 4-player local co-op and 8 players online. I love that these types of racing classics are starting to see new life in the indie scene, and I think HotShot Racing looks like a slam dunk for anyone who wants to relive the glory days of arcade racing. The team behind the highly acclaimed Momodora series of spooky puzzle adventures is jumping to a brand new genre this week with Minoria. Developed by Bomb Service and published by Dangan Entertainment, this $20 title takes the immediately recognizable art style and puts you in the shoes of Sister Samiya as she hacks and slashes her way through the Fourth Witch War. This one looks a little more linear, so I'm hesitant to call it a Metroidvania, but you will unlock new abilities and level up, and the combat has a heavy emphasis on dodge rolls and parries. Momodora has always been a bit too spooky for my tastes, but I'm really digging this new direction with Minoria. Mo Astray, or maybe it's M.O. Astray, is a cool dark sci-fi action platformer where you play as a little blob trying to maneuver through meticulously crafted worlds filled to the brim with traps, bosses, and just a bunch of things that want you dead. The pixel art looks great, and it seems to have a pretty neat story woven throughout. Developed by Archprey and published by Rayark, Mo or M.O. Astray drops on September 10th for $13.49. Bacon Switch, get it? Like bait and switch? Is another Overcooked-like game that was featured in a past Indie World presentation and launches this week for $30 from Streamline Games. This one seems to have a bit more focus on combat mechanics, as it isn't just the environment that works against you, but also some kind of magic guardian enemy things as well. Not bad, but $30 does seem a bit steep. So unless you've already played the dozen other games in this genre, I'd say put it on your wish list for now. And don't forget, we're only 2 months away from the huge Black Friday, Cyber Monday sale, so all of these games are going to be on sale before you know it. Oh boy. The team at Prototype suggests let's look for the treasure of life and offers you the chance to do so with a one-handed mode. Following the story from the series called Clannad, I'm sure I pronounced that wrong, the newest entry in this series is called Tomoyo After It's a Wonderful Life CS Edition, and it releases for $35.99. It's a anime romance visual novel, I think. It seems most characters do keep their clothes on, which is good, but everyone does look alarmingly young, and there's a point in the trailer where a 5-year-old girl is pictured alongside the phrase, "If you love me, you'll kiss me." So, and there's a teddy bear holding a lei that everyone seems enamored with. The description claims to have a built-in computer game that is a dungeon-crawling RPG, but there's no other information for it otherwise. Other than that, it's mostly a bunch of weird phrases about love, with girls dressed as sailors holding themselves and looking super emo. The good news is that you can play in one-handed mode or touchscreen, but, probably would advise against doing both of those at the same... Never mind. Vampire the Masquerade Shadows of New York is one of those games that if you know about it, you're probably already into it, and you probably don't need me to tell you about it. But it's another visual novel adventure. However, this one is developed by Draw Distance and is set in the world of Vampire the Masquerade. Anyone I know who's into this series just absolutely loves it. I can't say I've dove in myself, though. At $12, I'm thinking this is probably not the best place to start, since apparently this entry is a companion piece to the tabletop game itself. It's got some really cool art, though. Next up is the title I see as the surprise of the week because I had no idea what to expect from TikTok Games' Adventures of Pip. But this charming as heck side-scrolling action platformer for $10 looks like a really fun time. You play as Pip, who starts out as a single pixel and evolves into an 8-bit hero or 16-bit champion as he tries to save his 32-bit world from the evil D-Rezer, and everything I'm seeing about this game looks like an absolute treat. Adventures of Pip is probably going to be the game that I take a chance on this week, so maybe it'll be the focus of an upcoming Nindies at Night stream. Who knows? The Quantum Astrophysicists Guild kinda came out of nowhere, having only released a game or two in the early days of the Switch, but now has an impressive catalog including titles like Tumblestone, Gurgamoth, The Ambassador, featured in Nindies at Night a couple of weeks ago, and the wonderful Round Guard. This team is really making strides on the Switch, and this week they release Deleveled for $9.99. This is another simplistic puzzle game at first glance, but instead of just mastering a single mechanic to get your little blocks to touch the other little blocks, you have to use all kinds of physics and logic to do so. It's hard to explain, but I think the trailer does it justice, and if you're the kind of gamer who likes puzzle games that require a good blend of problem solving and dexterity with constantly evolving mechanics, Deleveled is probably the puzzler for you this week. After a couple of last-minute delays, Merge Games and Dark Screen Games launch what just might be the perfect Nindie Nation game with our pick of the week, Bounty Battle, for $19.99. If you're unfamiliar with Bounty Battle, it was originally shown in the March Indie World presentation and is basically like Super Smash Bros. But with all indie game characters. The system itself looks a bit more like the lesser-known PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, but the premise is the same. Pick your favorite character and battle it out with up to 4 players at a time for indie dominance. There's over 20 indie games represented here with characters from Dead Cells, Guacamelee, Owlboy, Nuclear Throne, Axiom Verge, and many more. I am so excited for this game. I've yet to play it for myself, but the early previews have been positive, and I've already requested codes from Merge Games specifically to give out as part of a giveaway to the citizens of Nindie Nation. So I'll keep you posted over on Twitter, and we'll discuss next week if we've got something more to share. Keep your fingers crossed. Either way, I'll be picking up the game for myself, and with it coming to PS4, PC, and Xbox as well, I'm wondering if this game might hit the Xbox Game Pass when it launches. I'm really hoping this game pans out because if so, I could see a lot of Nindies at Night bounty battles in our future. Solely on premise and fan service alone, I am very excited to play Bounty Battle and give it the Nindie Nation pick of the week. Come on guys, don't let me down with this one. Nindie newcomers EVC and another publisher we've been seeing a lot of recently, Versus Evil, bring another one of those games this week that just makes me love covering indies. In Wintermoor Tactics Club, you play as Alicia, who is just doing her best to work her way through high school, but in her mind, she's actually attending the Wintermoor Magic Academy. As snow begins to fall and snowball fights erupt, Alicia's imagination turns the premise of high school and snowball fights into a turn-based strategy RPG about working your way through magic school. How cool is that? Admittedly, it's basically the same premise from the first couple hours of Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, but it's told through clever narrative in a friendly, animated world, and there's no denying the stylish appeal of Wintermoor Tactics Club's approach. If you like turn-based tactics RPGs, this could be the game for you. And at $20, it's not that much of a risk to take. This is yet one more indie that I am adding to my own list for the week. And it's been a few weeks since we've had a release from Dragius Games, but they're back again this week with a budget-minded, by-the-book action RPG called Weakwood Throne for $4.99. Something happened in the kingdom, and it's up to you to stop the beasts roaming about. You travel, collect stuff, hit stuff, get stronger so you can hit bigger stuff, and overall it looks like the kind of game that could be ideal if you're binging through a Netflix show and just need something to help you idly pass the time. And while I say that endearingly, it's certainly not a criticism. I can imagine that might not exactly be considered a back-of-the-box quote. The next title that is still a part of the big Thursday drop is by an indie studio called Luxorix Games, whose website bears the tagline, "We are making indie games." And if that isn't the most indie statement an indie could ever indie, then I don't know what to indie. Their indie game this week is called Space Robinson, and it looks right up my alley, citizens. You've got your top-down, colorful sci-fi thing with the twin-stick shooting with a bunch of fun-looking weapons to craft and upgrade, and it includes procedurally generated levels, roguelike mechanics, and RPG elements. If you want to Robinson in space this week, Space Robinson will set you back $10. Okay, picture if you will, I'm sitting here looking at the name of our next game, Death and Taxes. I'm thinking up something witty, and I'm serious here, about how the game is you playing as the Grim Reaper, but you do so basically as a tax attorney, and wouldn't you know it? That's pretty damn close to what this game is. Developed by Placeholder Gameworks and published by Pineapple Works, Death and Taxes has you assuming the role of the Grim Reaper as if it were a menial desk job. Lots of clever games in this week's new releases. It's primarily a narrative-driven game, but your choices about who lives and dies can literally decide the fate of the world. And I'll be damned if the game doesn't look extremely well thought out. It's definitely going to be for those of you with a dark, twisted sense of humor, but hey, I rarely touch the narrative games, and I could definitely see myself picking up Death and Taxes this week when it drops on the 10th for $12.99. Huh. Next up is a newish take on Snake. You know, the game that came with almost every cell phone until the iPhone ruined mobile gaming forever.
If you have beef with that statement, feel free to direct your hatred to @Nindie Nation.
In The Snake King, Yida Games takes the classic Snake title and builds around it 150 dungeon levels that gives it a bit of a facelift, almost looking like a top-down 16-bit game in the process. If you beat the 150 levels, there's even a procedurally generated arcade mode too. Yida Games is a new developer, and while the game looks okay, at $7.99, I have to imagine it'll be on sale before too long, and a lower price could make this one more enticing for some quick throwback fun. Rounding out the week, we've got 3 games hitting the eShop on Friday, September 11th, the first of which is a game that I've been seeing a lot of my fellow Nindie creators having a ton of fun with this week, and I gotta admit I'm jealous. Inertial Drift is another release this week that's all about arcade driving and drifting, but Inertial Drift really leans into the premise, get it? With this $18 release. More of a direct homage to Ridge Racer, Inertial Drift actually maps the drift control to the right analog stick, making this game a very active racer to control. It's got a cool 90s neon cel-shaded art style that really pops. It includes a bunch of cars, a bunch of levels, a story mode, and multiplayer both online and off. Inertial Drift is yet another solid arcade racer hitting the Switch, and I've heard from enough of my Nindie contemporaries to know that this is a game that's easy to recommend. Doodle Derby could be fun, the premise sounds great, but this new release by Studio Ericsson and Head Up Games probably needs to be played or seen in review before I'm comfortable recommending it for $6.39. With a rudimentary drawn-on-paper aesthetic, you drive cars through a 2D puzzle of sorts where you race the other players while actually building the track in front of you. With a solo campaign and multiplayer, there's a lot about Doodle Derby that sounds really fun, especially with friends. But I'm going to put this on my wish list and watch the reviews later this week before pulling the trigger, and I suggest that you do the same. Baby, you're an action platformer about jumping, shooting, and dashing. Baby, you're based on games like Mega Man and Cave Story. Baby, you look pretty cool and have been positively received on other platforms. What can I say?
Baby, you're a firework.
And Firework by Fantastico Studios rounds out the week of new releases for $14.99. After a couple of atypical weeks, it feels good to be back to a typical great week of new releases. No indie world hangovers, no explosions of too many games to pick from. I will say that this week did have a lot that I'm considering though. With Bounty Battle and HotShot Racing leading the pack, I'm also excited to try Inertial Drift, Meganoid, Adventures of Pip. There's a lot of Nindie greatness this week. What are you excited to try? Let me know in the YouTube comments or on Twitter @Nindie Nation. Now, we're still going to hear from all of you about what games you've been playing, but before that, we've got to dig into the deals for the week, and with 652 titles currently on sale, there's a lot to choose from. So without further ado, here are Nindie Nation's picks for the best indie deals on the eShop through at least September 11th. 20XX is a game so good, it caused me to make my first Let's Play Nindies, and I will be first in line to buy its sequel 30XX whenever it releases. The easiest way to explain 20XX is that it's the Mega Man X games, but with procedurally generated levels, roguelike mechanics, and RPG elements. And right now, it's half off for $8.99. Yooka-Laylee and the sequel, The Impossible Lair, are two of the best versions of their respective genres and are both at their lowest prices yet. Yooka-Laylee is a 3D mascot platformer that calls back to Donkey Kong 64 and Banjo-Kazooie. It got some mixed reviews, but that's just because people didn't know what they wanted when they asked for exactly those games but in a modern aesthetic. I think it's great, and at 66% off for $13.59, Yooka-Laylee is a ton of game for a cheap price. Yooka-Laylee and The Impossible Lair, on the other hand, is the same studio's take on the Donkey Kong Country Returns series. And just like Tropical Freeze, The Impossible Lair is one of the best 2D platformers you'll find. Plus, it throws in a cool 3D overworld brimming with secrets to find. Yooka-Laylee and The Impossible Lair is 55% off, also for $13.59, and really, $27 for both of those games is an incredible value. Dungeon of the Endless is a fairly new game, on Switch at least, where you're holed up in a crashed ship and you spend the early minutes of the game building defenses and loading out a team of fighters. And then you open the door to escape and get bombarded by aliens trying to take you out, and you have to fend them off before you can make your escape. It's a super cool twist on tower defense and hack-and-slash RPGs, with some real-time strategy thrown in the mix. It's 40% off for $11.99, and if you like games like FTL or Into the Breach, this is probably one worth checking out. Totally reliable delivery service is best experienced on the couch with friends. If you can, you'll find that this game about delivering goods in a world filled with ridiculous physics is a ton of fun and guaranteed to have you laughing until your stomach hurts. Right now, Turds is 40% off for $8.99. I've really liked the recent resurgence of games inspired by the limits of the original Game Boy. Titles like Save Me Mr. Taco and Squidlet are just two in a genre that seems to be growing, and Doggerai is probably my favorite. If you can't tell, Doggerai is a game about a samurai who also happens to be a dog. It's simple, it's pretty short, but it is surprisingly well designed and a ton of fun. At 99 cents or 80% off, the game can be completed in under 2 hours, but I think it's $1 well spent. Flashback is a bit of a cheat, but it's kind of a hidden gem of mine that I love recommending. Flashback was a game released for the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis back in the 90s and is a cinematic platformer similar to Prince of Persia. The moves are exaggerated yet very precise, and you'll find yourself working out each room's puzzles perfectly before proceeding. It's actually a lot like Limbo and Inside in that way. The version on the eShop includes a bunch of extras and even has a full remaster of the game in tow. And at 95% off or only 99 cents, it's a cool trip down memory lane, or at least a neat history lesson in what was one of the most impressive games of the 16-bit generation. Overlanders is high-speed combat racing. Kind of like a modernized take on the Star Wars pod racer, or maybe like F-Zero but not as fast. You drive super fast hovercraft vehicles and you shoot things at other racers, and it's pretty fun. I wouldn't recommend this game at full price, it seems like a $5 game to me, so right now when it's 96% off for 99 cents, yeah, it's an easy recommendation. Mark of the Ninja Remastered is one of the best ninja games out there, with gameplay that's closer to a Katana Zero than it is The Messenger. The remaster of this stealth-based action platformer is actually a full-blown remake that looks gorgeous and is a strong reminder of why the original was one of the best games from the glory days of Xbox Live Arcade, the original indie platform on console. Super One More Jump is crazy hard, like maybe the hardest auto-running obstacle course game I have ever played, but it's really good and it nails that instant retry type of gameplay. If you're a pixelated 2D masochist, it's currently 93% off for just 49 cents. And finally, Bloodroots is one of my favorite games of 2020 that I keep forgetting released in 2020. This is a super fast and pretty challenging action game about a crazy Viking dude who has to use everything, and I mean everything, at his disposal to take out strategically placed hordes of enemies in one of those isometric, keep replaying it until you nail it type of games, and it is just an absolute blast. It's super violent, but also totally hilarious, and to this day, remains my favorite Let's Play video I've made. So go check it out if you're interested in this one. Bloodroots is 40% off for $13.99, and I really think it's a fit for almost anyone. The game is frustrating and super challenging, but it's never unfair and the difficulty can always be overcome. I don't think it sold very well, so if I was able to encourage more people to play it, I would love to see this game be a success for the team at Paper Cult, because I absolutely loved it. You know what to do, and I bet you know where to do it too. I want to know if you're picking up any of these games, and I'd love it if a couple of people tried out Bloodroots because of this episode, or, you know, at least watched the Let's Play because it didn't get nearly enough views for how hard I worked on it. Also check out 20XX because that is one of my all-time favorite Nindies, and it also has a Let's Play. Whatever you pick up, let's chat about it in the comments or on Twitter at Nindie Nation. Speaking of which, it's that time of the week for the rotating segment, which includes the games that have been keeping your Joy-Cons synced. So let's check in with all of you, citizens. Sushi has been making his first run at Castle Crashers and played through it with his girlfriend. Careful, I did that back in 2007 and now we're married. But boy was it a good time. The marriage and the game? I hope you're getting back in there and playing through the extra content, grinding out the characters and stuff like that, because there's a lot in that game besides just the campaign. Nugget Human Person, which is definitely her legal name, has been playing a bunch of Dead Cells and Fury Unleashed, and wow, talk about some roguelike goodness right there. Those games are very similar, yet just different enough. I wonder if it's brain-breaking to go back and forth between them. Osmosis P tells me to get good because they've been owning Blasphemous, and I'm just jealous because if I were good at the game, I bet I'd love it. Just use your parry, they say. Like, you know, it's so easy.
Hashtag sarcasm, hashtag salty.
D-Tron 2021 is plowing through the backlog by putting even more time into Splatoon 2? Never heard of that, Nindie. Must be really small. It said you didn't get into Creature in the Well as much as you had hoped to, and I'm right there with you. I actually really liked what I played of it. I probably got about halfway through the game, but then I just never had the motivation to go back to it. It's still sitting in my pile of shame. Oh, and you're considering Kunai and Sundered, huh? Which one did you go with? Sundered is great, and Kunai is probably one of the more notable recent Nindies that I just haven't gotten around to yet, but I am really interested in it. Let me know how it is if you ended up playing it. And D-Mortal is just trying to be a Nindie Nation fanboy, what with your Graceful Explosion Machine, Children of Morta, and Crosscode? You're just trying to score some brownie points. Seriously though, that's a great mix of games. If you haven't played around with the new family member that they just recently added in Children of Morta, she is way different than the other characters, and that really makes me hopeful to see what other kinds of unique characters they could add in the future. If we're not yet, send me a friend request on the Switch because I would love to see other people I know up in the leaderboards, especially in games like Graceful Explosion Machine. Speaking of which, please, if you head over to my Twitter bio, my Switch code is right there. Go add me, all of you. I love seeing what everybody else is playing, and if we're friends, it's way easier to find each other on leaderboards since you can usually sort by friends. I'll accept anyone's invite, so let's swap those friend codes. Seriously, Nintendo, enough with the friend codes already. Thanks for sharing what you've been playing, everyone. Don't stop there, though. I'm out there in the comments and on Twitter each and every week, and I love chatting with you all about what's keeping your Joy-Cons synced. You know what that means. Next week for the rotating segment, it's the next Nindie Publisher Spotlight. Who should be up next? I'm thinking maybe Ratalaika, Dragius, Team 17, Head Up, Merge Games, I don't know. Any publishers you've noticed you're building a collection of titles from? As we wrap up for the week, I want to remind you that we are brought to you by the Nintendo Village, where I recently posted my written and video review for Panzer Paladin, so go check it out. I'm really happy with the way that video turned out. The Nintendo Village hosts Nindie Nation and is an awesome source for everything Nintendo, whether you're looking for daily articles, reviews, podcasts, or more shows like Nindie Nation. So go check them out at thenintendovillage.com. Also, over on the YouTube channel, Nindie Nation posts every Tuesday, usually in the mid to late afternoon Eastern Time, and every Thursday you can catch the Nindies at Night livestream at 10 p.m. Last week was a ton of fun with Hades and Scourgebringer, and I have no idea what we'll be playing this week if I can't get my hands on Bounty Battle, so I'm open to suggestions. Those videos are also readily available immediately after the stream concludes, so if you can't hang out with us live, you can always watch on demand later. And if that wasn't enough, hopefully this week I'll get my Let's Play Nindies up for Spench. All I can say so far is that I'm having a blast editing the video, and ever since my daughter saw a clip of it, she keeps asking to watch the video where I scream about babies. I think it's gonna be a good video, so look out for it, maybe later in the week. Other than that, citizens, we're all done here. You know to comment on YouTube, you know to chat it up on Twitter. You'll check out the Nindies at Night stream. We've looked back to last week, we've looked ahead to next week, we've checked out the deals, and even heard about the games that you've been playing. That's a lot, and there's even more where that came from next week when we check out a game about dogs, a game about crabs, and one of the most anticipated Nindie trifectas of the year made by a team of angry crabs. What? Thanks for joining this week, and we'll see you again next week, same time, same place. Until then, I'm Jeff. This has been Nindie Nation episode 81, and no matter what escape you're looking for, whether it's an all-out brawl between indie protagonists, a desk job as the Reaper, or just a bunch of fun drifting around in race cars, Nindie Nation will be right here to help you find just the thing to keep your Joy-Cons synced.